Good evening. I would like to start a new series of my YouTube channel and podcast when every day I will be reading a book about artificial intelligence and data monetization for a couple minutes so we can read the book and then talk a little bit about that. The first book I would like to start with, it's a book that the title is Power and Prediction. The Disruptive Economics of Artificial Intelligence by Ajay Agrawal, Joshua Gans, and Avi Goldfarb. The purpose of these meetings with you guys is basically get familiar with interesting books, but also discuss a little bit of the thoughts after reading a couple pages every day. So let's start with this book and chapter 1. A parable of three entrepreneurs. Electricity changed our society. It changed the way we live, providing inexpensive and safe light with the flick of a switch and reducing the burden of housework through consumer goods like refrigerators, washing machines, and vacuum cleaners. It also changed the way we work, powering factories and elevators. What did it take to do all of this? Time. The ambiguity of electricity makes it difficult to imagine that at the turn of the 20th century, 2 decades after Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, it was pretty much nowhere. In 1879, Edison famously demonstrated the electric light bulb and, just a few years later, turned on Pearl Street Station in Manhattan and lit the streets. Yet 20 years later, only 3% of US households had electricity. In factories, there was barely more. However, after another 2 decades, that number accelerated to the half the population. For electricity, these 40 years were the between times. There was plenty of enthusiasm for electricity, but not much to show for it. We tend to forget this when new radical technologies emerge today. When the light goes on, rather than everything changing, little does. AI's light is on, but we need to do more. We are now in the between times for AI. Between the demonstration of the technology's capability and the realization of its promise reflected in widespread adoption. For artificial intelligence, the future is uncertain, but we have seen the pattern for electricity. Thus, to understand the challenges facing the commercialization of AI, put yourself in the minds of entrepreneurs circa the 1880s. Electricity is the future. How would you make it happen? The point solution entrepreneur. Steam powered the economy in the second half of the 19th century. Coal was used to heat water that generated energy, which was then immediately applied to drive levers, pulleys, and belts, and that in turn allowed for industrial production. By all accounts, steam was the miracle driving the biggest economic revolution since agriculture. So, an entrepreneur wanting to sell electricity would have to encourage would-be customers to take a closer look at the steam and identify its words. When placed side by side with electricity, those words were not hard to see. Steam dissipated heat, which was the point, but much of that heat was wasted. Steam power lost between 30 and 85% of its potential from condensation, leaky valves, and friction from using a shaft and belts to carry the power to workbenches. The shaft system can be difficult to imagine. Think of a steam power source at one end turning a long 3-inch shaft of iron or steel that then allows belts and pulleys to operate along the line. Some shafts may be horizontal, but many factories had multiple stories with shafts in a vertical configuration. One shaft could power hundreds of looms, for example. The immediate opportunity for electricity was to provide an alternative source. At the same point, steam power was used at the end of the shaft. Frank Sprudge, a former Edison employee, saw this in 1886 when he developed one of the first electric motors. While Edison was focused on light, Sprudge was among those who realized that daytime electric power would be cheap and electric motors could take advantage of that. Sprudge used his insight to power streetcars and building elevators. Others took the motors into factories. We call this point solutions because these inventors were taking steam and swapping it out for the new power source, electricity at the point of entry to the factories of the time. The point solution and the entrepreneurs of the late 19th century found two types of customers willing to see electricity as a new source of power. One type was large steam-powered mills. A textile mill in Columbia, South Carolina, gave up on steam in favor of electric power in 1893. Hydroelectric power was a simple substitute for a mile-long cable transmission system. The power provided was the cheapest in the country. Another type was clothing and the textile manufacturers. The words of steam were its lack of cleanliness and the potential inconsistencies in the speed generated by power. Electricity improved quality on both these dimensions. The value the point solution entrepreneurs promised was lower cost and other benefits specific to certain factory types. That it was plug and play made it clear when they were selling, but in many cases it was still a hard sell. Only so much of a power bill can be sliced off by changing a power source. What a point solution did not offer was a reason to use more power. Very interesting pages from the authors of this book. I would like to focus on two elements here. It took 40 years for electricity to become popular. Imagine you work in a dark house inside because the night is outside and you cannot really do anything at the home. You can't bake bread, you can't prepare dinner, you can't talk to your friends because there is darkness outside and darkness inside. Obviously, you can put a candle on, but that's not the point. And now suddenly you have electricity coming, but it took 40 years to bring electricity everywhere. That's how much time it takes to populate the technology. Obviously, we need to build cables, infrastructure, poles, electricity grids, and things like that. I believe the same with AI. AI requires a lot of different technologies, a lot of computing power. We need to work on saving lights and making sure it will not eat all the energy to give you that answer through GPT or other solutions. So I completely agree with the authors of this book, and it's very profound insight that we are at the early stage of artificial intelligence. On one side, it's very exciting because we can put so much goodwill into that and make sure that AI will be good for everybody and will equally help everybody in the society. On the other side, we need to make sure that we work on that properly to develop that to that stage when it will be more matured and will deliver better results. So we need more engineers, more talents working on that. The second great point from these few pages is the point solution entrepreneur. I really like that. It's like the authors are giving us an example that if you switch a steam power engine to electric engine or electric motor, what only change is a cut cost. Basically, steam power installations were leaking a lot of energy because of we're losing a lot of energy because of leaks and other inefficiencies. If you switch that to power, electric power, you basically could save more money because there was less waste. And that's actually, it's very important, interesting point, because if you think from that, from the AI saving cost perspective, that's actually not the real point. AI can save a lot of time, but when you want to write something, when you want to design the image, design the house, but that's not the point. Because as the authors end up these few pages, they say what a point solution did not offer was a reason to use more power. In the case of artificial intelligence, we could say what a point solutions did not offer was a reason to use more AI, which means that we need to look for a solid use cases when the AI can be like a power in a steam engine times. It can bring more reasons to use artificial intelligence for good, like people that have a problem with reading, or deaf people, or blind people. Artificial intelligence can improve their life a lot. Or like people struggling with writing, like me. I can't write beautiful emails or beautiful essays. I just don't have talent for that. But artificial intelligence can give me a reason to write more, or to prepare more essays, or to improve my vocabulary through interacting with AI. So I would leave you with those thoughts for today, and have a good night. And I will keep reading that book. So I hope to have a great conversation with you. Take care. Bye bye.